of radicalization, a law in France that bans people from regularly consulting jihadist websites that urge acts of terrorism was ruled unconstitutional on Friday. The law was brought in last June, 7 months after the Paris attacks that killed 130 people and ushered in a state of emergency that is ongoing here in France. The Constitutional Court vetoed the law, saying it infringed freedom of communication unnecessarily and disproportionately. To discuss, we're joined now by phone by Nafees Hamid. He is a research fellow at Artis International. Nafees, thank you for joining us. You're specialised in radicalisation and terrorism. What do you think of the Constitutional Court's ruling? That is, do you think that it was the right decision, or do you think it creates greater security concerns?
No, I think it was a right decision from a pragmatic point of view. Obviously, I can't comment on the legality of it. But the police in France basically already have pretty broad-ranging powers in terms of when and where they can arrest an individual. This law basically simply said that if you're watching videos or you're online looking at jihadist propaganda or communicating or just consuming any of these materials, that they can arrest you simply for viewing the materials themselves. If someone, however, is viewing these materials and is out there looking for recipes of how to make a bomb or looking for particular locations of where to put a bomb, the police can still arrest people for that.
And I think it's fair to say that this particular ruling is a good example of the ongoing tensions between security concerns, creating laws that go in that direction, and the opposing issue of protecting civil liberties. What would you say about that tension and how governments are now leaning more towards perhaps security over civil liberties concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it because people are scared and governments have allowed people to slip through the cracks who they were fully aware of beforehand. On the other hand, you have to understand sort of how every single one of these small decisions can play into the recruitment narratives of terrorists or their recruiters. For example, one of the arguments that is oftentimes made to people, young people who are living in France or the UK or the US, is that all these liberal democratic values, all these freedoms that your government supposedly assures you, it's just a ruse. Really, these leaders, this establishment just wants to consolidate power to themselves. And they point to things like Donald Trump's Muslim ban, or they look at the burqa ban, or more importantly, they look at all of these very intense security measures. So every time there is some little event like this constitutional overturning of the law, the Constitutional Court overturning the law, it sort of undermines that narrative that these governments are not being motivated by their liberal democratic values, and instead they're trying to persecute Muslims. So in some small way, I wouldn't say in a big way, but in some small way, it does undermine the recruitment efforts of radicals.
All right, Nafees Hamid, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, a recap on our world news headlines. Donald Trump says